Hello everybody, this is Thomas. I'm glad you're watching this. We are now doing the Jubilee Month 3 block of the month. This may somewhat resemble Month 2 a lot, but there are a few things that are different with this one. And the biggest thing about this month is directional fabric, and where we want our directional lines to all be flowing in the same direction. We all want them to be going vertical up and down. So if you look at your instructions on page 11, you will see that. So first thing we're going to do is cut out our fabric. So month 3, what you're going to see in there is your background fabric, white or blue. You're going to have L5, which is your directional fabric, and then you're going to have D3. Everybody remembers the kaleidoscope blocks that we made in the very first month. You're going to get another big piece of that. Take this piece, and it should be marked in the bag. Put this into month 12. This is going to be your border fabric, so put that to the side and do not cut on that yet. Okay, so I have my background fabric here. You guys have seen me use the stripology ruler in the previous months, so I'm going to use that again. So the background fabric is cut the same as you would have for your previous month. We are going to cut one strip that is 4 inches wide, and then subcut it into 4-inch squares, and then 8 3-inch squares, and then a 1.5 strip, and then a 2.5 strip. So on my stripology ruler, I'm going to line that up. You can kind of see the bottom there. I've got my stripology ruler lined up with my fabric. I am going to cut 4-inch wide strip. Then we need a 1.5-inch strip. So we're going to go 4 plus 1.5 is 5.5. And then we need our 2.5-inch strip. So 5.5 plus 2.5 is 8. We're going to remove that excess fabric, the 2.5, 1.5, and 4-inch strip. So we're going to come in here and we're going to take the 4-inch strip, and there's 2 layers here. So I am going to cut 0. 4 is 2, 8 will make 4. We only need 4 of them. Then this remaining strip here, so we are going to trim this down to 3 inches because we need 8 3-inch squares. And so now I'm going to cut my 8 3-inch squares. And then we're going to take our 1.5-inch strip of fabric, and we are going to subcut 4 1.5 by 10.5. So this is still folded in 2 layers here, and I need 2 10.5-inch strips. So 10.5 plus 10.5 is 21. So I'm going to go 0, 10.5, and then the very edge of the right hand side of the ruler is 21 inches, so that will give me my other 10.5. Then we're going to take the 2.5-inch strip, we're going to lay that down, and then we're going to cut this, we're going to subcut this into, 2 12.5-inch strips. So now we have cut the background fabric out. All right, L5, we are going to cut L5 down to 3.5-inch strip, and then we're going to cut it into 8 3.5-inch squares. So this is the directional fabric. You will notice that I fold this up for the stripology ruler, and we want this cut into a 3.5-inch strip. Now I'm going to subcut this into 8 3.5-inch squares, which actually gave us 10 squares, so we have a little bit of extra. Then we are going to take the D3 fabric, so let's cut this down to a 4-inch strip. All right, after we cut that to a 4-inch strip, we want to carefully cut 4 4-inch squares, so don't cut more than what you need, because we're using the remainder for an upcoming block. So I'm going to try to save as much fabric as I can for oopsies. Again, we only need 4, so I cut it 0, 4, and 8. This remainder fabric, we need to put this into month 12. We have now cut our fabric, and the first thing we want to do is, now we're going to turn to page 12, and we want to take our D3 fabric, which is the 4-inch squares, and our background fabric that is white, and we are going to mark a diagonal line on those. I am taking a Creative Grids ruler. I'm taking my 4-inch square that is my white background. If you have the blue background, you may want to do another one. You want to use a marking pencil that will work. I have the pink Choco liner if I have the white background, or I can use the Sew Steady white pencil marker, but I won't do it on this one because I have that. We are going to take this and we're going to mark a diagonal line on all 4 of our 4-inch background squares, so you can see where I have the line there. Make sure you draw the line on the wrong side of the fabric. We are now going to put right sides together. I am going to take my trusty Wonder Clips, and I have lined up the fabric so that it is positioned evenly on top of each other, right sides together. I'm going to clip these 2 corners here. And what I previously talked about before, we got our line drawn here. I'm going to show a 1/4 inch on each side of this line. Of course, the instructions do tell you to sew a scant 1/4 inch, which means move your needle to the right. When not good at it, you can move your presser foot over just a little bit on top of the line, and that will give you your scant 1/4 inch. After we've sewn that on both sides, so we got that square that we've sewn to our dark fabric, and we are going to cut on the drawn line that we had. Use your ruler so that you don't slip. I am then going to come in and we are going to press this seam open with our iron. My seams are pressed open, and a few people have wanted me to kind of show what it looks like with the seam pressed open. After we have pressed the seam open, you will notice that I am placing my dark background to the top right here. I am going to take my stripe fabric. Now, I want you to look at this here. We're going to have on the stripe fabric, it is a total of 8 pieces, and this is your directional fabric. So if we look here, notice that these are all going the same direction. I want to turn one to have it go horizontally, and then I want to turn one to go vertically. So when I do that, you can see this here that I have one going horizontally and one going vertically. So I'm going to make a stack of 4 going horizontally and a stack of 4 going vertically. I kind of want to keep those separated. This is important to make sure all of our directional fabric goes in the same direction. If we used a rotating mat, so I've got my piece going vertical and one going horizontal. If I take the mat and rotate it so that I'm at a good angle physically, I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw a line. So you can see I got my vertical lines and horizontal lines. I have drawn my line from the bottom left to the top right, bottom left to top right. So I'm going to have a stack of 4 that look just like this and a stack of 4 that look just like this. This is important to make sure that we do that for our directional fabric. So I got those going that direction. I'm going to take my piece that I just did previously that I pressed the seam open. I'm going to take the stack of 4 vertical, and I'm going to place them centered on top of my square here. Notice here I am going to try to get my point. So my line's going from the dark through there. So my lines go, if I turn it like this, my line's going up and down, and then my seam's going horizontally. I'm going to place that directional fabric on top of this square. I want to make sure that this corner is lined up with my seam. This corner is lined up with my seam. And yes, this is kind of what we did before. Try to get as centered as possible from this point and this point. I take my Wonder Clips and clip them. And now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on each side of my drawn line. And I'm going to kind of leave this here so you can see here is my stripes that were vertical. Here's my stripes that are horizontal. And I'm going to take that background piece again. I'm going to place my line going up and down that I drew. I am going to place this on top of this piece here. And again, I'm going to make sure that this is positioned here, and then we're going to clip the corner so it does not move on us. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on each side. So you will have a total of 4 that look like this. So my line's going vertical, line going from bottom left to top right that I drew. So, and you can see where it's going from the blue there, and then the white background there. And then I'm going to have 4 horizontal lines, and then my drawn line going from bottom left to top right. So you can see that there's a difference between these two pieces. Again, you need 4 of these and 4 of these. So you've got your line here. We're now going to, once we've sewn on each side of our drawn line, we are going to take our ruler and cut those in half. So I'm going to press these 2 real quickly so you can see where I have pressed them open on this side. When I flip them over, notice they're opposites. One's going horizontal, one's going vertical. And I'm going to do that to all 8 of those. So I'm going to get one going vertical, one going horizontal. We're going to trim these down to 3 inches. So I've used a creative grid ruler. You can see on the ruler, we got a 45-degree line that comes down. Half of 3 inches is 1.5 inches. So when I come down the vertical line, I'm going to come down to the 1.5 inch mark here. So ignore this here. Watch your white square. So I'm going to come down 1.5 inches, over 1.5 inches, and it's right there on that diagonal line right there. So I want this 1.5 inch mark to be lined up with this point here as close as possible. I'm going to place the ruler on there. I'm going to use the 45-degree line, line it up on my seam, find my 1.5 inch point for my center. Vertical line going here, center here. Notice that here's my 3 inch mark and my 3 inch mark here. I want to make sure that that 3 inch mark is really close to where these two meet and where these two meet. So I'm trying to get this as center as possible and get my line lined up with this mark here, and notice it's off a little bit, so I kind of want to pivot just a little bit, and we're just going to try to get this as centered as possible. But the really big key point to really get these to line up nicely and look visually good, make sure that your vertical line here is on the seam, and this point here is lining up where those two fabrics meet, and 3 inch here is where those two fabrics meet, and we want to make sure we have an excess of fabric outside the 3 inch. And you can see here, I just barely have the 3 inch there. I am now going to square this up. And yes, I'm using a rotating mat. I am going to cut, rotate the mat, and then I'm going to take my ruler and line it up on the 3 inch line here, 3 inch line here. And then I'm going to cut off the excess. And I'm going to do that to all blocks again. Now that you have all those blocks done, you're going to have we're doing that flying geese thing again. We're going to have a left side, a right side, vertical, and a horizontal. So when I go through my squares, I'm going to find this is a horizontal left, horizontal right, and we're going to line these up and get them in place of each direction. So you will notice now I will have a stack of 4 going vertically left side, 4 going vertically right side, 4 horizontal left, 4 horizontal right. After we get them in our stacks and divide them out, notice I have them set up. I am going to take these 2 pieces, so I can start with whichever, but I recommend pulling them from your piles like this and folding them over. You're going to come in and we're going to line up our angles. So I like to fold them together like this, pull that back, make sure that my seam lines match, and then I'm going to pin. I'm going to come to the other side, fold this back, make sure my seam lines line up, and then fold this back over and pin. You're going to do that to all of them, and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch down each side to get your squares. So we have made our flying geese, and you can see that they look like this. On this piece here, my background is my yellow. So I now have 4 of these that are going vertically and 4 of these that are going horizontally. We're going to lay them out. So here's how the block is. We got our center kaleidoscope. I want all my stripes to be going vertically. So you can see where I have these 2 here. If I put this on, not vertically, yes, vertically. I want my stripes to go vertically. Those are horizontal. So I need to take this flying geese and move it to either this side or this side. Our background fabric is facing out. So here is my next one, and my stripes are going vertically. Here's the next one. This is not going vertically. So this needs to be turned to go over here. Again, we want to make sure the background's going out. And then I have my next one going vertically. When you lay it out like this, then you know that you don't get your background turned in. You want your background facing out from there. You want all of your stripes to be going vertically. I thought this was so neat about this block. So then I'm going to put in my cornerstones for the background fabric. So I've now laid out my block. What I am going to do is I'm going to take this piece here and sew it to this piece. Then I'm going to take this piece and sew it to that piece, this piece to that piece. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch along this edge all the way up on these blocks. All right, I have sewn the pieces, and people like to see this. On all of them, I came in and I pressed my seam open. The directions can give you arrows to press the other way, but I came in, pressed all of my seams open, as you can see here. So this is what I got after I sewed the block, because we're going to have 2 of these total. I am now going to take this piece, sew it to this piece, 1/4 inch down this side, this piece to this piece, sew a 1/4 inch down this side, this piece to this piece, 1/4 inch down the side. We have that. We are going to take, and I've already done it, but we had our rows like what we did previously. We're sewing the top piece to the center piece. We're now going to sew this piece to this piece. When I wanted to kind of talk to everybody, when I do this, I want to make sure that I get a nice point, and I don't cut my point off here in my pattern. Notice my stripes are going vertically, so every time you lay down the pieces before you start sewing more rows and blocks together, your lines are all going the same direction. I am going to take my piece of fabric, and I'm going to pin at 1, 2, 3 places. I'm going to come down, fold this back, make sure my seams line up. I'm going to pin. Then this piece here, I got the center line there. Since this is opened up, I'm going to want to hit right here in that point where my bead. This makes it nice. When I press the seam open, I got this nice little point. This tells me where the point of my star is going to be. And we're going to line up our seam, and we're going to pin, line up this seam, and pin. Now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch along this way. And so when we sew a 1/4 inch, I like to have this star facing up as opposed to turn to this side. I'm not seeing where my point's at. So I like to sew with this on top so that I can see my point and sew across so that I know to sew right here in this point or just above it so that I don't cut off my point. Like here, my point's not cut off, and that's what I like to do. All right, here is your almost finished square. And this can easily be turned, and it still looks like the same thing, but notice my lines are going horizontal. We want the lines to be going vertically. So after we get the lines to go vertically, I'm going to take my two of my 1.5 inch strips. I am going to sew them to the side. So this is important at this point because when we lay this in the quilt, we want to make sure that these are sewn to the lines while our lines are going vertical. So I'm going to sew this to this to this, 1/4 inch, and then after we've sewn them together, we are going to take the 2.5 inch strip and we're going to sew that to the top. And once they get sewn together, your block should look like it does on page 11, where you can see on their thing the lines are going vertically. The 2 pieces are sewn to the side, and then the 2.5 inch is sewn to the top. And that's what you're going to do for both blocks. I hope everybody enjoys this. I will see you at question and answers if you have any. And I can't wait till next month to show you the next block. All right, everybody have a great day. Bye.